There's a kind of work that doesn't come with a title, a paycheck, or even a thank you. It's the remembering, the emotional cushioning, the quiet fixing before things fall apart.
And somehow, if it's done well, no one sees it, but if it's not done, everyone sees it.
And this is true across cultures and generations, right? Like women have been taught to carry this work as love, as duty, as identity, to do everything and make it look like it was nothing.
And that invisibility comes at a cost to health, balance, and how women see themselves. Today, we are naming the invisible work women do and asking what happens when it finally becomes visible.
Welcome back to Chocolate and Spice Talk. I am Neha, the quieter sister. Today we're talking about work that rarely makes it onto job descriptions, calendars, or performance reviews, but somehow holds families and entire societies together. That's the invisible work.
Hey everyone, I'm Nidhi. I am the spicier co host. And it's funny how women are often doing everything, everywhere, all at once, and somehow still being told they are too much, not enough. We want to talk about what that does, not just to perception, but to health, identity, balance, and how women see themselves.
Yep, and maybe help put words to things many people feel but have never been taught to name. So it's a hard one. It's a conversation Nidhi and I also had trouble even, between ourselves talking about because we're still learning, but we want to make sure we talk about it and highlight it. So let's get started. So Nidhi, when you hear the word or the term invisible work, what comes to your mind?
So, in my mind, when I hear the word invisible, it's all those tiny or big, small tasks that are running in the background of daily life, the one that keeps everything moving but goes unnoticed until they stop. So, it's remembering that your kid has a field trip or they need a signed permission list. It's noticing that the milk is running low before it runs out. So, in my mind, it is all about anticipating needs before they become problems, identifying what specifically needs to be done, and deciding to address it, and monitoring and making sure everything gets done. So it's kind in 80s it was called emotional labor, and it involved like the unpaid invisible effort in relationship, household, caregiving. And there was a friend of mine who told me once that I remember, and she said that, you know what invisible work looks like? It's like being human sticky notes for your entire family, but the problem is that except to you, nobody else sees the sticky notes. And I was like, oh my God, that sucks. But yeah, for me, that is in my mind is the invisible work. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, and the way you said it, which is nobody notices. I mean, ideally, it's okay if nobody notices or validates, but the problem is the expectation setting, right? Like if it is not done, if the same task that you mentioned is not done, the entire blame, and I use the word blame, is put on the woman of the family, whoever is the woman in that family. And it is never the male counterpart who's supposed to take that responsibility. And I think that's what creates this division of labor and that extra pressure on women to sometimes they don't even have to do it, but if they don't do it, they mentally and emotionally feel like they are lagging behind, like they're not doing a core duty, which is not true, right? Like in my mind, this is all this is all a made up fantasy, right? Like this is what a woman is born with. Like it's not like we are born and suddenly we want to clean everything, take care of everybody, cook all the food, and make sure everything is at the right place. That's not how anybody is born with. It's like the training that comes into place. So hopefully we're able to talk more about it. So yeah, my definition for invisible work would have been exactly the same as yours.
And if you remember, Ma, when, if I can give you an example of like a holiday gathering, like if you remember Ma in the kitchen, when we used to host like dinners and all of that, she was laughing and chatting, but except that she was always working, like monitoring time, coordinating dishes, anticipating needs. Meanwhile, everybody else was relaxed at the table without any awareness of what's being behind, managed behind the scene. And we have seen this firsthand, like what our mother did to manage all of that, and others were totally unaware of so much work that went into it. So that's one that stuck with me.
Yeah. And we are still doing it, right? We
true.
are still doing it. I mean, our parents' generation had a much harder time because they didn't have a dishwasher, an oven, or a microwave. So a lot of things went from scratch, but we still do it. In my mind, I have to constantly think about, oh, the bed sheets, or the house is dirty, things like that. And it's automatic. It's autopilot because somehow when we were kids, we either saw our mom do it, and so we modeled ourselves after her, or society just told us, hey, your room's dirty. Hey, you're a girl and you're still like, so you're not taking care of things. And so it sticks in your mind somewhere. I think that's what it shows. So hopefully we are able to come out of that, and that's what we're here to discuss.
And it's hard
Yeah.
to name and quantify this because, as you said, it is coded as natural.
Mhm.
Like uh, it just says that you have that innate like ability to do it, and the problem is that culturally coded as women's natural nurturing instincts, even though that might not be true. But that's why I feel like it's so hard to like name this is invisible tasks. But my question to you is: at what point does helping or being caring turns into obligation?
I think the moment, uh, well, at what point does it turn obligation is the point where people start blaming you for things going wrong. So when I think mostly depending upon, the environment that you've grown in, of course, mostly as girls are little, if they help around, they are praised. And that goes girls to show, hey, we're being praised. So clearly it's a great deal. We must continue doing. Like that's how you reward a behavior and then you optimize towards that behavior. And girls continue doing that. And ultimately, when they get, they have their own household, they get married or they have kids, it becomes codified because they've been doing that since their childhood. They cannot imagine somebody else is going to be doing that. Now, if the male of the family, as they were growing up, were also doing the exact same things, like literally, praised for the exact same things, they would have also grown up thinking this is the expectation. And if society had also further amplified that thought, and so then things would have been, in my opinion, more equal. And we have seen households that are more equal that way. So I feel like as soon as something becomes an obligation or a duty, it becomes work, and then it becomes extra work, right? Like, of course, if you are a working woman, most of us are working women. But even if you're not a working woman, you're taking care of the home. There's a lot of work, right? There's a lot of work, and it is completely on you. So that kind of obligation, especially for those who are homemakers, that obligation with no validation and no return at all, very visible return, can be pretty mind-numbing. And again, the biggest challenge is that if you somehow don't get it done, that you are sorely to be blamed. Like if somehow you're not invested in your every single moment of your kid's life, father is not even questioned, but a mom has to be completely responsible. If a father is somewhat invested, he is an incredible father. But a mom obviously is a mom. So these are, I feel like, double standards that, we could definitely work towards as a society to get better with.
And I feel, yeah, I mean, you talked about obligation, and I also feel that if you do something thoughtful once, like organizing a family event or taking care of somebody's dietary need, you just become the default person forever, whether you like it or not. And that reminds me of a funny story. So when I got married, one of our neighbor jokingly told me that, hey, when you go to your in-laws or family's house, don't make the amazing coffee and tea that you make. And I laughed because I sounded like such a silly thing to say. But then she explained, then she said that once people see that you're really good at something, and they know that you make really good chai, tea, or coffee, you become the default person
Mm-hmm.
forever, not just today, but forever. At that time, it felt like just advice about hosting. But then it clicked. It's the same thing about the food. It's cooking. I enjoy it. I'm the one responsible, not because you agree to do it, but because now it quietly becomes your responsibility. So it's like you are in charge of it. And then there's a time when I don't want to do it, and people notice that I don't want to do it because I didn't sign up for it. I did it out of joy, but it just starts feeling like an obligation. So,
100%. And I think the codification of what a woman naturally wants to do is so biased and so incorrect, because every human is born with a certain personality. And I think like we are doing a lot of disfavor to the males of the society who may have also been born with that caregiving and nurturing spirit, right? A lot of men have a very nurturing, caring spirit when they want to do all of these things. And because society expects something different from them, they kind of either hide it or let somebody else take care of it, and they behave a certain way, and they are losing touch with their own that self. And there are women who are born with more of a desire to do something else besides, like, you don't always have to fawn over every little thing and care for it, and then they are blamed for it, blamed for not continuing with that spirit which is not inherently their own. So I feel like it would have been amazing if as a child you could have understood what is that child veering towards. And of course everybody should be able to do everything to sustain themselves, that's like a given thing. But if you're taking responsibility for others, like, do you enjoy it? Are you able to even out and help somebody? Like, those are the things that should have been much better considerations, and I'm hoping next generation is able to do that. And I know, Nidhi, you do that with Vikram a lot.
Yeah, and I think you answered my topic that I was going to ask you about. Like, do you think women, like girls, females, are subtly taught from a very young age to take responsibility for things they aren't technically theirs? Like, research does show that girls are expected to take care of siblings, remember birthdays, set the table, caregiving activities, whereas boys are like, do physical chores like take out the trash, like mow the lawn, which are less cognitively demanding. And it's just, sex role stereotyping, which you're right, like we just expect this from this gender, and maybe that's not the right way to do things. And obviously we know that this is systemic behavior that has set up this pattern. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 100%. And I think like the intrinsic roles, the roles that are emotionally taxing, because they're not visible, also don't get recognized. Like, if you've mowed the lawn, you've mowed the lawn. Now the lawn is mowed. Great job. Star for you, right? But if you've been wondering about, oh, when is my kid's next appointment? Or, is my kid's uniform ironed? Like, is the lunch meal prepped and things like that? It is you keep thinking about it because you have to plan ahead and just consider, or is this person sick, or how do you manage all of those conversations? That is an internal self-talk. And another interesting meme that keeps going around is, women, when they sit, they are never really sitting, they are thinking of five different things at the same time, and then everybody laughs, this is how women are. And look at men, they just sit quietly and think of one thought. No, it's because they don't have a lot of expectations. Typically, they don't feel like they have a lot of responsibilities. So why should they bother thinking about it? They can think about this one thing that's the focus of their mind, say, whatever, like watching TV or playing a game, or, I don't know, washing the car. That's the only thing they're focusing on. But a woman has like six different compartments where they must focus on. So I think that is another very interesting sort of invisible work, which we consider funny because we're like, oh, women are probably born with five brains. Nobody can multitask and, um, you know, have equal amount of energy.
And it's
So
unfortunate that our culture also does reward over, like women who
easily,
overfunction. Like
easily.
overfunctioning women get specific rewards, and they are called like the responsible one, the one who is the glue, the one who holds everything together. And that that takes a lot to I mean, if you're gluing the family together, that means you are managing everybody's expectation, anticipating needs, soothing all the conflicts, and the team is like the invisible mother, right? So that is very, powerful. Like it's a very relational security. Like women also have the identity to caregiver, and think that's a problem. Like culture has made women such a big caregiver that now they're not able to identify themselves as anything different.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like, especially if you remember a lot of older Bollywood movies, particularly, if you're not a sacrificing person, you are not the lead actress. You must sacrifice everything, take care of everybody first, and then yourself last. And if you were not that, then you're automatically the vamp of the movie. And that is like a trope that has been true in, many societies, and of course the society that we've grown up in. And the same thing that you're saying, like the expectation that women become caregiving, and caregiving is a huge label. It never ends. It's a never ending job, right? And how do you disassociate yourself with that label? Another example of that is if a woman decides not to have children or is not able to have children, it is as if her life has no meaning, because who is she going to care for? Like, biologically, why else must a woman have been born if not to care for kids? And, I think we've evolved enough to understand that we have more of a function than taking care of either kids or situations. Like, we have more to give to the world and to ourselves. And and then, again, it creates a lot of emotional baggage and unhappiness.
Yeah, I'll give you the example on the same topic, which is perception and self worth. Like, for a very long time, everybody, and even now, I mean, everybody does think that I have this innate gift of running things naturally. Like, I manage time, I organize things and do all of it. Like, I'm calm at it, I handle it. But it's hard for a lot of people to see how what it takes to keep things running in the background. And I'll give you an example. When I had the newborn, when Vikram was newborn, I had this massive emotional and mental load. I was exhausted, and obviously newborns don't sleep, and I was just running on very low fuel. I had hit a wall, and that's when I decided to sleep train him, not because I was like cold or rigid, but because I really needed to do this to survive mentally. But when I talked about like sleep training with family around me, this decision was not received very well. And I was called like hot-hearted, literally that word. I was called, "You're not a good mother." I was called like, "You have very high standard. You are nagging. You are." So look at the double bind here. So when I was quietly doing all the invisible work, soothing, anticipating, managing needs, functioning on no sleep, it was all effortless and I was perfect. As soon as I started taking care of myself, I became like controlling, and cruelty was, associated with my personality. And, I did eventually what was best for me. I did sleep train my child, and that was like the best thing ever. But that thing stayed with me, like how quickly invisible labor turns visible when you stop doing it, and how harshly you're judged when it comes out finally. So
Yeah, and the perception is everything. I kid you not. Like, it's even like what you described is huge. And I have been guilty of it too, because when my son was born, like I tried to be that sacrificing mom. I tried to be that person. I decided I was going to be that person. I thought like that is the biggest thing I could give to anybody on earth. And if everybody called me a good mom, I was like, what else could I possibly need in life? Yes, you want to be a good parent, but that does not mean I make myself suffer on account of it. But somehow that was ingrained in my mind. So I do think perception is everything. I'll give you another funny example. Well, it's not actually funny if you think about it. So you also, and I have to go to work tours quite often, and it's like even my mom, like when I go to work tour, now she stopped asking because she now knows my answer. She's like, "Oh, when my son comes back from college, let's say, and he's around and I have to go to work tour," and she's like, "Okay, did you prepare everything for Aryan and Ashish, like my son and my husband? Is everything done?" I'm like, "Nope." And she's like, "Well, what are they gonna eat?" And like, "उन लोग क्या खाएगा?" What are they gonna eat? They are grown-up adults. I'm sure they can figure out how to eat if I'm not around for a week. And it's like that would have never been the case if my husband was going on a work tour. Nobody would be like, "Hey, did you make sure your wife is well fed and taken care of?" Like, so it's a very little thing, but look, the guilt is going to come in if I were not pre-decided on how I'm going to respond and what I'm going to do. And my husband is incredibly supportive. So, like, there is no problem involved there. But it's like this little nagging guilt is like, maybe I should have done it. That person, when they go, they do it. What if I did it, right? Like, this little thing, because now that person is a superhero, clearly a what do you call, superwoman, but I am not. And then I've realized it's perfectly okay if they are and I'm not, right? So I agree with you. It's perception is truly horrid. And another thing that I wanted to talk to you about with this kind of emotional load, like whether you agree to do it or don't agree to do it, there's an emotional load either way. Like,
Mhm.
how does it play on our physical health, right?
Yeah, I mean, so research does show that this is a very stressful job, whatever we're doing, the invisible work, and sustain high cortisol partially explains like the mental health issues, including depression that a lot of women go through. And the biological impact is hypertension, fatigue, difficulty focusing, muscle weakness, headache, memory problem, and so many things. It's like the stress is the worst thing ever. And so this burnout and balance, this all causes like so many issues, the exhaustion, the stretching thing, and wearing too many hats. It's like we have so many fancy names, but I think it converts into a lot of health problems if we don't realize that you are at a point where you are going to stop doing anything and the blame will come back to you, and then the whole vicious cycle will start again of like you trying to not being able to keep up and you not being able to ask for help. So I just feel like it takes so much emotional health. So that's why we are talking about it. Hopefully more people can talk about it. The first thing is we identify and so on, but I just feel there are so many health repercussions of so much work that's on our table, including the cognitive load.
Yeah, and again, those are invisible health problems. Now that we are more aware, thanks to a lot of doctors, especially women doctors, talking about it, you know, it was dismissed. Like if you'd go and say, "Hey, my tummy's hurting," it's like typical woman just making up something because she doesn't want to work, right? Or like
Yeah.
because there was no way to measure it, right? The society at that for hundreds of years has been led by from a male-centric point of view, and if they are not suffering from it, they couldn't even imagine somebody else could. And as time has progressed, fortunately, we are able to recognize a lot of these symptoms, which are invisible because there is no particular term for it, and you don't know what's causing it because our emotional and mental health absolutely affects our physical health, and that's what's causing it, and we have to take care of it. And like postpartum depression was not even a thing until a few decades back, but it's a reality, right? So, 100% that, invisible work not only leads to visible physical health symptoms, but also sometimes what's called invisible health symptoms. And we have to be cognizant of that.
And I just feel exhaustion should not be normalized.
Oh
I
my
just feel,
gosh.
and no human, regardless of gender, should have like perpetual exhaustion as a part of their identity. I think that's no way to live.
Yeah, because if you're sitting, right, like we have been trained not even to sit. If you remember when we were young, if you are sitting and just sitting, it's like, wait, what? Just go fold some clothes. Wait, get some water from there, right? Like, how
Yeah.
could you possibly be sitting? And all of this was to train a woman for what would be expected from society in the future. So, in a way, our parents were trying to do the right thing, thinking like this is how they will have to be as they grow up. But unfortunately, it adds to our own. Now we have grown up. No one's actually behind our back telling us to not sit, but we literally cannot sit because we think we have so many chores to do and we continue towards it. So, definitely, it's a lot of unlearning.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we can teach the next generation better,
That's what
but
I was
also,
thinking.
yeah,
How
it's a
can
lot
we
of unlearning.
reclaim balance? Like what's done is done, the damage is done, but how can we like unlearn, set boundaries, and reclaim the balance? And so, I think the first step is how do we recognize the invisible work that we have been doing? So, do you have any tips or tricks? How would we do that?
I would say, like, one of the things is, recognize it and then be able to talk about it like we are doing, but also talk about it with your spouse or with your parents or with your friends. And a lot of times, like especially in societies where women have been taught not to say too much for the sake of maintaining the balance and harmony and peace, if they say something, then they become the bad person, the one who broke the family apart, um, and then the one who caused ruffles, right? Like the guy could have been doing that forever, but if a girl does that, then it becomes a problem. So I think a bit of understanding and recognition has to come from all parties. But for that, we have to create awareness, right? Like the more we talk, the I think the better we get at it. There's this very amazing video. Unfortunately, I'm not able to remember whose video it was, but it was a more older woman, who was talking about her own perception and how she has changed. And she was talking about cooking food, and she's an Indian woman, and she's talking about, hey woman, if you are at home, just don't cook a lot of food, and don't think you have to cook a lot of food, and people will come and praise you, and you should think, wow, now I got praise, like amazing job that I've done. And don't take this validation as your need to cook more food. It's like cooking food is not your job and not your only job. And this is the funny thing is, I sent this video to mommy, and she gave me a thumbs up, because and because our mommy is like that, right? Like,
Mhm.
she works so hard, she's always exhausted, and she cannot imagine a life not being exhausted. She wants to do a lot of work and keep herself busy. And now it's hard to distinguish between when it's busy because she must keep doing something, and when, like, she's overdoing it. So yeah, I think the first one in my mind is what where I feel like you and I may be at, which is realizing it is a problem, realizing that our perceptions need to change. Like, I'll give your example, right? Like last time when I raised this topic as something we need to talk about, you said, um, what what will we even say about this topic? What is the problem, right? and and then I think you took a moment and you realized, right, because in your mind you're equal partners with your husband, which is great. So you have no, physically you all doing same thing, but we don't even realize what are the other areas that we are silently working on.
It
So
took me a week to think about what, because last week you brought it
yeah.
up and I couldn't even see the invisible work. I really had to sit down, read about invisible work, think about it, and then I was like, oh my goodness, I really started seeing it. And I always knew that obviously I have a very supportive husband, to be very clear. He does a lot, but he doesn't do what I do. I'm not saying I do everything, but I do a lot of background work that he doesn't do, the invisible work where the household is running smoothly, monitoring emotions, anticipating needs, and noticing patterns, preventing problems before they show up. That's all me. So it's not just making dinner, it's looking at the ingredients. Are they healthy? Is it a good plate? Talking about like personal preferences and keeping track of if we are running out of something. So it's like a lot of those things, like not just doing a task, but like organizing things around it. So yeah, I mean, as you said, it's like first step is seeing it, identifying the problem, and then figuring out how do you solve it.
Yeah, and I think the main thing about identifying and knowing is that only if you truly intrinsically understand what is that invisible work you've done, can you even correctly talk about it. Because you don't want to sound like, you don't want to go to a person and say, hey, I'm overworked, I've been doing so much work, you don't do anything. Because they will not even know what that anything is. And so you have to truly understand that and then talk rationally, because that other person, in that case, in this case, maybe your spouse or your parents, have never seen it from that point of view. And so I think change takes time. So I do feel like it is okay to give it some time, so that, there are no like sudden jumps or rifts, but you give it time. Like in my case, I have taken a lot of time to finally recognize, like when I suggested this topic to you, I was already thinking about it for a while. Um, and it has come from that place of, my husband helps me a lot, like a lot. Not just helps me, like he does a lot of the work, I do a lot of the work, and we are completely equal partners. And it is when I don't do those things and I realize, wait a minute, all this while I was doing all those things, how was I even doing all those things? I cannot do all those things now because I feel so much better. I have emotionally, physically, mentally, I feel so much at ease. And those are the things like happened over time. Like he and I chat a lot. He sees me doing it. He recognizes I bring it forward and he is willing to participate and take. And so I feel like, yeah, starting the understanding for yourself, starting the conversation rationally, and then seeing what can be taken or not are pretty good steps. How
And it
about you?
is so hard to stop. like the guilt, fear, identity, expectation, all of this is tied together to all the things that we have been doing. And the system is designed to keep it that way, right?
Oh my gosh, such a great point. Sorry to interrupt. Like, it just triggered a thought in me because even when I was a kid, I remember, not a kid, like maybe a teenager or something, I used to tell mommy, because mommy would do everything for papa, right? Every single thing. I mean, that generation of women did everything. She'd cook and she'd clean and she'd serve him food and wash the dishes and everything. And if she's not around, which was never, but if she would not be around, papa wouldn't even know what to do. And so I remember telling mommy, even when I was pretty young, mommy, you do all of this so that papa, because this is your identity and you want papa and at this whole society to always credit you for this thing, for always being this thing and always doing this thing. And the challenge to your point is then you associate yourself with that identity. And then mommy was so defensive. She's like, no, 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 that is not true at all. If I don't do, Papa is not trained to do that. He will
I've
never
seen
be able
Papa
to do
doing
it. Right? And I definitely carried it over. I remember when I got married, the first thing, I had no idea how to cook. Fortunately for me, mommy never forced me to learn to cook. She was like, she'll figure it out on her, and I never figured out. But anyway, so when I first few days after my marriage, I was like, oh my gosh, I am a married woman. I must cook. And so I tried to cook. It was horrid. And my husband was a perfectly fine cook. And I was like, how can I possibly let my husband cook? Like, it is my core responsibility. And to your point, yes, there's an identity problem. Like, what if my husband doesn't think I'm a good wife and leaves me because I cannot cook? Can you freaking believe it? I still remember 21 or 22 years back, those were the thought process in my mind. And it took me, again, same thing when my kid was born. I was like, what if the society thinks I'm a terrible mom? What's like, who cares what the society thinks, right? So, yeah, identity is a major problem.
Yeah, it is. And guilt is also a major problem. And I think we don't use the term guilt properly. Like, for example, like every week, a lot of weekend, I go out to meet my friends, or if I am going on a work trip to fill my cup, I have this heavy feeling of leaving my son, which I call guilt, because I see him being upset, and I see my husband being a little disappointed that they'll have to figure things out by themselves. And I'm like feeling guilty that I'm doing this for myself. And I'm like, what is this feeling? All I'm doing is taking the discomfort that they have, absorbing in
Mhm.
myself, and making myself feel bad. But is it in my value system to be more than a mother? Yes, it is in my value system to be a good career woman. So I'm going to go on work events. Is it in my value system to have friends outside and, have a community? Yes, it is. That means I have to spend time outside of the house. So why am I making myself feel miserable? So anyway, so it's like a little bit of change. Initially, when I was like a new mom, this was overwhelming, which I used to call guilt. But now I explain to myself that, what is this freaking feeling? That this needs to go away. I have to stop feeling. I have to set the expectation. I will be gone. You guys have to figure out what you have to do, and I will be gone for a couple of hours. It's not a big deal. So yeah, it's like setting the expectation. It's like you have to change a little bit of identity and uh, do what's right for yourself and your family.
Yeah, and be willing to speak up. Like,
Yeah.
another supposedly silly example I'll give is, I used to typically, when my kid was much younger, do all the washing of clothes and all of that. And my husband started doing that several years back. I remember, like, bed sheets, when you give them to wash, how they will crumple and they will form a ball, and then you have to unball them and then do, it's like, we do it naturally, like,
Mhm.
okay, it happens, solve it, put it again, and there it goes. I remember the first couple of times my husband did, he was so frustrated. He's like, you don't even know anything, right? You know what happens when there's like the whole bed sheet crumbles, and then you have to, and I thought to myself, oh, they don't know because they've never done. They've never faced these issues, right? They just
So
need to
new.
be told that this is normal, right? If you can solve it, great for you. This is okay. This is normal. This is not just like designed to make your life miserable. This is how miserable our life was always, right? So let's just do it, right? So it's so simple. It's as simple as communicating and making sure they know, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think you're talking about like starting redistributing labor without feeling like you are failing.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's hard. Like I'm so guilty of this. Like I don't know what term I should use. Like controlling feeling. Like I have this
Mhm.
nurturing, controlling feeling. It's called maternal gatekeeping. I have that
Mm.
feeling where, if my husband tries to do any of my job, I'll quietly like criticize, critique, and kind of get angry because he's not doing it as well as I do
Mhm.
it. But
Mhm.
then how else do you distribute work? And again, I'll give you an example. In December, I had a 3-day work event where I was gone from home from like 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and he had to do everything. And I told him, I'm not going to pack lunch. I'm not going to take care of dinner. You will figure it out. It's my 3-day event. I just want to be myself. And he said, fine. And he was like, he didn't even say, it's like, don't worry, we will take care of everything. And then they did take out every day. They ate pizza. And on third day, my son came to me and he said, Mama, I haven't gone to poo poo. And
Oh,
internally, I'm like, did you even eat any fiber? Did you eat any vegetables these 3 days? Did you eat any fruit? And I was getting so angry and I could feel myself boiling. And that was I had two decisions. I had two choices to make at that time. I could have really been angry with my husband saying that you did such a poor job, or I would have said this is a part of learning. If he's going to be an like equitable partner, not just equal, like if he's going to take over the mental load also, then he will have to figure it out. Just the way you gave the laundry example, he has to figure out unroll the bed sheets. It's like he'll have to figure it out. So I did the right thing. Thankfully, wisdom came over me. I didn't pick up a fight. But yeah, this is the example. Like when you have to also make peace that it might not be perfect the way you do it. It's like delegating. Like as managers, if we delegate something to somebody junior, you don't expect them that quality of work. Hopefully it'll get there, but you just have to make peace with what you're getting right now.
yeah. It's such a beautiful example and so well put. And this is something that took me a while. And I now realize like I probably caused more friction initially when I would complain about I'm so overworked, I have to wash dishes, I have to do this. Because he'd be like, okay, I'll do it. But because he has never done this in his life, or he's not seen the standards from his own childhood of how things should be done. He's doing it in his own way, right? And like if he's washing dishes, not everything is gone. And then I would go and rewash those dishes. If his dried stuff is not, so I would go retry. And then he'd feel bad. He's like, don't you trust me with doing it? And then and it takes me a lot of like thinking and unlearning to be able to say, yes, you are doing it, you're doing it as well as you can. And over time, you'll see there are marks, there are issues, that dish is unusable and it has to be thrown out. And then you will have learned. Like that's the way I learned actually, either being taught or being learned, and you can make a choice of how you want to do it. So it does take time and patience, especially if, if it's been very deeply ingrained. But again, to your point, the next generation,
Hopefully.
hopefully it's a much simpler task.
And that is what I want in my relationship and in my partnership. I want fairness. I want fairness, not just helping out. And generation that our husband, like our partners belong to, they were not trained from the very beginning of like having this cognitive mental load, not just executing tasks, but I mean like ownership of mental load. That's what I want with my partner. We've done a lot of work to get there. I still do, honestly. It has not come easily to him or most men his generation. They were not raised that way, so I'm not going to blame it, but there's still time for them to learn all of this, and I think we are getting there. I'm very proud of it. Like I think my husband, like he knows, we share schedule. We know what we have to do. He knows my son's teacher's name, all the friends. He will take him to play dates alone. He will do a lot of those things that were just like women's duties initially. So I think we're getting there. I'm getting to a point where there's no default parent. That's my goal. It's like I know he still needs me a lot. My kid needs me a lot, but there is no single household manager. The mental architecture of a family life is shared, and that is something I'm very mindfully trying to teach my child too. So he's 6, so he's still very young, but I'm helping him understand what sharing workload looks like, what having cognitive effort, anticipating needs, preventing, sharing responsibility. And I'll give you a few examples. Like when he's going to school, and I don't say put your lunch box in bag or take your water bottle. I say you're going to school, what do you need to get ready? And he's like, oh, it's your job. It's like, it's not my job. You're going to school. What else do you, what all do you need? And he's like, I need to put my lunch box and bag. Yeah. Oh, I need my water bottle. I need to put my jacket on. So it's your responsibility. It's not mine. And then on the chore chart, we have a section called notice and do. So I'm not going to tell you what you have to do, but you get a star if you notice something and do. For example,
Mm.
he's like, oh, mama, you left your shoe outside today. Didn't put it in the shoe rack. Notice and do. You'll get a star. Oh, papa, you forgot to put your dish in the sink, so he'll put it. So it's like, I want him to have that level of cognitive recognition that, you I just don't want you to like do something because I told you to do it. I want you to see and participate in it. Like when we had got married, my husband was in that, like, just tell me what to do, I'll do it. And I'm like, yeah, you will execute it, but you don't know that I have to do laundry, but we don't have any detergent. You don't know that this detergent doesn't sit well with our skin. We need a separate one, and newborns need a separate type of a detergent versus this. So it's like all of those background things that runs a household smoothly was my load. And again, to the point that I'm trying to get to the equity, like fairness level, which I think is great for my mental health.
Yeah, and hopefully this conversation helps everyone. I'm so glad, like for the next generation, like you said, there are so many ways we can do it. In my case, of course, my son is much older now; he's in college. But the way I try to, especially now, show him is through his own dad's example. I'm like, hey, did you know your dad cooked this? Look look he's cleaning all the dishes, right? Like look he's folding all the clothes, and so he sees it. He's seeing him doing all of those things, and now he's grown up enough to know, okay, he doesn't have to now associate a person with a task because he's seeing it happen and he's at that age. So, well, I hope I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope this conversation resonated with somebody, and this is something that we'd like to talk more about. So, if anyone's interested in joining the podcast or has more thoughts, please feel free to share with us. As usual, you'll find us on our Instagram channel, as well as we have our website at chocolateandspicetalk.com. And we also read our emails, so feel free to send us emails.
And thank you for being a part of our community.
All
Bye.
right. Thank you. Bye.